The Belgian Grand Prix was predictable at the front after the first lap, but during the first lap there was a crash that shuffled the front. And that first corner crash between Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri was possibly the most memorable part of the 44-lap Belgian Grand Prix, since it immediately eliminated two top 5 starts. So, who is there to blame? Well, if you ask Carlos Sainz, there's only one person to blame, and that is Oscar Piastri. The Spaniard has dropped a bombshell on the rookie, stating to everyone possible it was not his fault. It even went so far that Sainz said the following on his own website: "Not the way I wanted to finish the first part of the season. Hamilton stayed behind Perez and I attacked him on the inside. Then came the contact with Oscar and that was it. A racing incident, but in my opinion, Oscar was way too optimistic, as he was never side by side with me, and making that move from behind has never really worked here in Spa. I'm disappointed, but it's also part of racing." On a positive note, it looked like the pace was good today, so congrats to the team and Charles on an encouraging result. We need to keep pushing hard to make sure we come back strong after the break and have a good second half of the season. It's clear to see that Sainz doesn't think he did anything wrong, but is he to blame after all? Piastri, who was one position behind Sainz on the grid, had gained ground on the Ferrari at the start, allowing him to enter the first corner with his McLaren's front left tyre alongside Sainz's rear right. However, as Sainz sprinted from the outside line to the inside barrier to pounce on Lewis Hamilton, he and Piastri found themselves on a collision track that neither could change. As a result, Piastri's MCL60 became trapped against the barrier, and the left side of his car damaged Sainz's SF23. At this point, the race was practically finished for both, with Piastri withdrawing without completing a single lap, and Sainz pushing around for 23 laps until retiring in the pits. The stewards had investigated the situation briefly, but no action had been taken against either party as a consequence. Though Piastri's in-race remarks showed he was offended by Sainz's approach to the corner, he was more forgiving after the race. "I think it's quite firmly in the category of a lap 1 turn 1 incident," he told journalists. "I got a good start and got my nose alongside, and then when we got to the braking zone, Carlos moved a bit to the right and locked up, and I also had to try and avoid that a bit. And then from there to apex, my options were quite limited on where I could go. I had a good starting point. I hit Carlos's rear wheel, he moved to the left, and I had to take action to avoid him, but I couldn't. It's just disappointing to finish the race in the first corner, seeing our pace from yesterday. I'll look back over it more and see if there was more I could have done, but it's just a shame that we're standing here and not still on track. Looking back on it, I think we both could have done things a bit differently. It is a very tight turn 1. Carlos didn't have many options from where Lewis was either." McLaren team principal Andrea Stella agreed with Piastri's view, saying, "It looks like Carlos either didn't know that Oscar was there, or because he needed to avoid the car ahead, he just drove onto Oscar, and there was a wall limiting the space available." The steward's decision shows that this was also their take on what happened, although it was obviously not Sainz's. The Ferrari driver told Sky that rookie Piastri's F1 inexperience was evident in the incident. In a media interview, he took a similar viewpoint. Carlos Sainz has blamed Oscar Piastri for their incident at Turn 1 in the Belgian Grand Prix, which forced him to withdraw. "I didn't get off to a bad start. I tried to overtake Hamilton and was blocked. Then there was contact with Oscar. He was very unfortunate. I was on the attack with Lewis and I think I pretty much had the move done into Turn 1. I made the apex cleanly and everything, but unfortunately I think Oscar was trying to do a bit of an optimistic move on me," Sainz argued. A bit of a shame because when you review the past races here in Spa, and you know what has been the typical Turn 1 incident, it's exactly that, no? Everyone who tries the inside line into Turn 1 and tries to really make it around there normally generates an incident or a crash, and this time it was my turn to receive it. Sainz said he had locked up, but refuted the assumption that he'd gone deep into turn, saying, "I made the apex perfectly and passed Lewis if you look at my onboard. Yeah, I do lock up, but I don't move deep into the corner." And while he was indeed aware that Piastri was on the inside, he said, "Yeah, but at some point someone needs to back out. And it's the guy who is alongside my rear right that I think needs to back off the move, not me, and let him pass me into Turn 1, especially when I'm pretty much having my move done with Lewis. I think the more experienced riders know you shouldn't go inside at Spa, but I don't want to blame him too much." After the incident, Sainz's side pod sustained serious damage, causing him to fall down the order until quitting midway through the race. It was pretty much undrivable, But we kept it going and never give up in case there was a red flag and the rain passed, he explained. But the rain passed and there was no red flag, so we retired. Sainz's interpretation of events is odd, especially in portraying Piastri as a driver who made an opportunistic first corner push. Neither the above helicopter camera video nor Piastri's onboard camera provide compelling proof for that claim, which appears to be shared by F1 TV analyst Jolyon Palmer. If Piastri's approach to the corner is misguided or too opportunistic, the question is where it becomes so. Whether it is considered he should never have moved alongside Sainz in the first place, or if he should have reacted by applying more pressure to the brakes after Sainz's path changed. Piastri appears fully within his rights in approaching the corner the manner he does before Sainz dives to the right, even if it's a trajectory that normally puts the burden on Sainz to possibly hinder his own corner approach. But Sainz's approach, although legal in the absence of anything and hitting the turn apex, is so abrupt that the tyre lockup nearly seems like he's avoiding a collision with Hamilton, rather than deliberately lining up a move, so it never gets to that stage. I could see Carlos lock up, so he had to go to the inside, but then of course Oscar was kind of there as well, was how Max Verstappen saw it from behind them. They both went deep into the corner. I knew exactly what was going to happen because I had the same thing happen to me in 2016, I think it was. I was like, okay, I'm going to stay out of it, I'm going to go wide. In his F1 career, Verstappen has had two significant opening lap collisions at La Source, both with Kimi Räikkönen on the inside. He surged down the inside of Räikkönen in the 2016 race, prompting Räikkönen to bump Ferrari teammate Sebastian Vettel into a spin. But it was the 2019 collision that was more spectacular, and it's possible that's what the champion is thinking about. Another inside surge that year resulted in him being pressed towards the inside barrier by then Alfa Romeo driver Räikkönen. The resultant collision momentarily raised Räikkönen's car onto its two left wheels, with Verstappen's Red Bull suffering damage that forced him to retire in the Raidillon barriers. It's difficult to find an angle that makes today's accident appear to be Piastri's fault, rather than it takes two to tango occurrence, or one purposefully caused by Sainz. Sainz's response is understandable, considering that the mid-season break begins on a negative note. However, in pointing out Piastri's inexperience as a role in this accident, it is perhaps Sainz who presented the perspective of an impatient rookie. While Piastri soon parked his damaged car, Sainz continued for nearly half a race, despite an obvious hole in the Ferrari side pod before withdrawing. While Ferrari never calculated a potential lap time with X points and X points of balance, according to team president Fred Vasseur, the performance cost was a lot. Sainz had dropped to last place by lap 17, but it would be another 6 laps before he was forced to go into the garage. It was no surprise that this order arrived shortly after a long-anticipated rain shower passed without having a significant impact on the race. We were just expecting a red flag at one stage to be able to fix it with the first shower, but when the shower came without the red flag, we decided to stop, Vasseur explained. So who was there to blame? Is this really Piastri's fault? Did his eagerness to move up the grid prevent him from driving the entire race? Or is it Sainz's fault because he was so fixated on passing Lewis Hamilton as fast as possible? What do you think? And where will we see these drivers and teams after the summer break? Will McLaren be able to uphold their terrific form? Or will Ferrari come back as one of the contenders for the last podium spot, just like in Belgium? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.